Thanks so much for joining. Leslie or Dave, can you see? Oh, there you go. There was just a little delay there. It's starting to record now. Great. Great to see everyone today. Thanks so much for joining. This is a meeting to go over the Homeowner Assistance Program, Counseling and Legal Services um, program launch status, and go over a short high-level demo, and then also address some variety of different areas around agency connection and counseling capacity, and then also getting some of the agreements and materials that we still need. So thank you all for joining us. All of you will be receiving an email immediately after this. I didn't quite get a chance to send it out. I'm still compiling some information that will kind of have all of the information we're still needing from you all. Thank you for everyone who's gotten things back. So I put that all in one email because I know we've sent a number of emails, and so trying to compile all those things into one spot. I am going to share my screen and just go over the agenda for the morning. I know we've got a lot to cover here.
Chad, I did just put in the chat a link to these slides that includes the agenda up on our website. So if anybody wants to get to it that way, they can.
Great, thank you. And there you go. Everyone should be able to see my screen right now. We hopefully won't need to do too many of the slides, and we can all see our faces. There we go. So what we'll do is George will give a quick program launch status, and then we'll go into the referral process and be able to walk through that. And then we'll talk a little bit about your agency's connection to the applicant case data. And then Sarah will be able to do a high-level demo of that portal. And then we'll just kind of check in around counseling capacity and kind of see where we are all at, and just have a discussion around needs and kind of areas that you all see coming up. We'll go over the agreements, and then finally a list of info needed, remaining info needed that we'll need to gather. So that'll be the agenda for the morning. I'm going to show this slide next. And again, thank you, Leslie, for putting it in the chat. Is that these are the resources for all of you, so you'll have access to this. But just wanted to again reiterate that you all, any homeowner case questions, there's a dedicated email that can be sent to for those. And then any organizational questions can be directed to me, or all of these things will be also posted on the affiliates portion of the website as well. And then any of the legal services questions can be directed to George. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to turn it over to George for a status update.
Hi, this will be very quick because there's not a whole lot to say, unfortunately. We are still awaiting Treasury response to our most recent iteration of the plan that reflected some of the comments that we got. The hope is that they will respond soon. A number of states at this point have gotten their approvals, at least I know that during Christmas week, there were in fact some approvals done. I don't know about last week, but I do think the most recent I heard was the 22nd. So I'm hoping that this week they start the process, they start issuing approvals again, and we hear something either this week or next week, and can move forward. So in the interim, we've been spending a lot of time working on the application portal, working on, and now we're in the case management process of working on that. So in some respects, it's a little bit fortuitous because, not having the approval just is giving us more time to get ourselves organized. And also to work with you guys to make sure that these communications are put together and that we have everybody structured at the time we actually launch for applications. So that's my update, and I may turn off my camera at some point because I'm supposed to get a washer dryer delivery and my dog will go crazy and there will be people tromping through my kitchen. So that's what's happening.
Any
Thanks,
questions
George.
for George before he gets
Nothing
away?
washer and dryer related, please.
I just wanted to add a little bit about.
I'll be glad to have some clean clothes. I'll tell you, it's been a while waiting.
The big question is front loading or top loading.
Front loading. Anyway, sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
No worries. I just wanted to expand a little bit on what George was saying in terms of the timing for when you all might start hearing from customers who've applied for HAP assistance, because the way this system works is that the applicant would most applicants will go in and do the application online, and it's there that they'll request counseling or legal services. And so when they submit the application, then it will go into the system, and it'll have to pass a few preliminary approvals to make sure that they are eligible by some of the basic standards. So they'll go through kind of a preliminary eligibility screening with this case management system. And it's after that that you would hear that they would be referred to your agency for counseling. And so what that means is that we haven't opened anything yet, and we don't plan to open anything until we get Treasury approval. But once we get Treasury approval, it could be today, it could be tomorrow, but the first thing that would happen is we would open the program for applications only. So we would accept applications for a week before the program is fully launched. So this is a long way of saying that in the best case scenario that we got Treasury approval today, we wouldn't open this program fully until January 17th. And so you wouldn't hear from anybody through this program until the week of January 17th. And that's at the very earliest. So I just wanted to kind of play out that process and timing with you. And we can talk a little more about the process. We will be talking a little bit more about the process today, but just to expand on that status, what that all means for applicants and for counseling services. Yeah, we are going to talk about the referral process. I just wanted to get to my notes a little bit about that. Basically, you want to talk about this, George, or do you want me to kind of go through how that's going to happen?
Well, I think the referral process to VHFA depends, I guess, on the nature of the applicant, right? I mean, if the applicant has the ability and has the resources to complete and fill out their application themselves, then basically you'll just be referring them to our website and they can go through and do it. And you'll just advise them that if they are looking for credit counseling as part of this, there's a spot in the application that they can ask for that. They can it will go through that process for referral, and you'll hear once the person has been deemed eligible for a referral that they've been referred to you. If, on the other hand, this person needs application assistance, right, then and you're signed up to provide that, then that you'll be part of that whole process of submitting the application and, helping them submit the application and filling in the boxes for them.
I'm sorry to interrupt, George or Leslie. Do you want me to be sharing? We just kind of jumped right in. Do you want me to share these slides here to have a visual?
Well, I thought
or do
I might. I think that slide about how I mean, we're talking broadly about referrals, but I did want to make sure that I got a chance to describe for the group how the system is matching applicants with agencies. And so there is a slide about that, Chad, called Counseling Agency Assignment Methodology. The easiest is if they ask for legal services, because we have one agency that provides that. And so the folks that request legal services will get automatically in the system connected to Vermont Legal Aid. And that means that they will become part of the case list for Vermont Legal Aid in the system. And you're going to hear more and learn more and see more about what that case list looks like before we sign off today, when Sarah demos the portal a little bit for us. For the counseling agencies, this is the methodology that we came up with to match applicants who submit applications online with you all. And how it would work is if they did happen to work with one of you to complete their application, then you would be obviously connected to that applicant prior to their submitting the application, and you would become their counseling agency, and they would show up in your case list for counseling. If they don't need help with their application, we expect that, like most applicants, will be able to do the application online without assistance. Those applicants will get matched to you all by virtue of what town they're from and your service areas. And so your service areas and their town would dictate how they are matched with you. Because Opportunities Credit Union is also providing counseling to applicants for HAP assistance, and they serve the entire state. We came up with a system at this point for them to kind of get every sixth applicant referral, regardless of where the applicant is. But if they have not worked with you to complete an application, then OCU would simply be in the hopper for every sixth one, so that they kind of have about the same number of applicants in some ways as you all. So that's the methodology system, and we can talk more about capacity and other opportunities that are available to provide counseling to the applicants if and when if you all find that this is too much for you, we can adjust this.
So we've got a couple of questions in the chat, and Barbara's hand is raised. Barbara, do you want to go ahead and ask that question, or if you had a follow-up question to what Leslie just talked about?
Yeah, this directly relates to what Leslie was discussing. So we know that sometimes, people will sign up at one agency, not really quite getting that we have a geographical disbursement amongst the homeownership centers. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that if we're helping somebody with an application, that we should ensure that they're within our county. So if someone from Windsor called us for whatever reason, because they do, we should be referring them back to Windsor at that stage, because then if they wanted counseling, they'd stay with the same agency. So we should be triaging that as people contact us?
No, actually, it would kind of be the other way. If somebody from Windsor calls you and you help them with their application, and that's indicated on the online application, then they would stay with you for counseling if they also requested counseling.
Okay, all right. It's just because as a general rule, we sort of have, as you have them delineated there, we usually, somebody came in for home buyer ed and they were in a different county, we would probably refer them back to that HAWK for that service, since it's that service area.
I see.
And you can do that.
I mean, that obviously that's your choice. If you get somebody and they're saying their property is outside of your normal service area, you can say, well, really, you should call down, whoever, and let them do that. But to the extent that you're one of the counseling agencies, and you also happen to provide application assistance, and that's indicated on the application, and then they also ask for counseling, the first sort of preference would be to send them back to the entity that provided the application assistance.
That makes sense. So my follow-up question, and I don't know how this would work, but as we go through, different agencies may have an ebb and a flow for capacity, where if someone called one of the other Hawks and they didn't have capacity, is there a mechanism, then it sounds like there is, to pass them along to a homeownership center that might have that capacity or opportunities potentially? Yes.
I guess that's something that we can talk about. I don't think that right now it's there would have to be a process in place where if somebody got a referral for counseling, and they said, well, I can't really handle this right now, can you send it to somebody else? That is going to have to be a process where it basically gets sent back to the system for the system then to find another home for it. That can be done. It's just needs to get built in.
George, I want to jump in here just to say that there is a mechanism in place that you could assign to another agency.
Is there for sure?
Now. Yeah, I just checked.
I just bring that up because we happen to have a counselor who's leaving, and so we're going to have a short transition time where our capacity will be less, but then when the new counselor gets on board and trained, well, then our capacity will be great again. So I just envision over this time frame that will come up from time to time, and I'd love to see us working, synchronizing to work together and be collaborative.
No, for sure. And Sarah, just for my edification, because I didn't realize that there was already that functionality in place, is this so that if, for example, Downstreet gets a referral and Downstreet says, gosh, I just lost somebody, I don't have the ability to handle it, they can pick where to send it to? They can say this, Rural Edge can handle it because I just talked to them and they said that they're slow? Or is it just go back in the system and the system does it?
No, they can choose. They can choose a different agency.
Yeah, the system has the capability of doing that at the present time already. It's just I think we need to develop some procedures irrespective of the system's capability.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that this is going to require, as you said, collaboration among all of the credit counseling entities to talk to each other and to indicate if somebody has some free space to, or if somebody's finding themselves at the edge and say, hey, I'm hitting my wall. Is there anybody else out here who can take up some slack?
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Bruce, did you have a follow-up question to this part in terms of capacity? And then I know Grace has a question.
Yeah, the opposite also happens, especially or I see it a lot because our capacity is more down in Windham and southern Windsor County. So in northern Windsor County, we've got people commuting up into Montpelier, et cetera. And if they want to work with Downstreet,
right,
we often say, yeah, go for it if it's more convenient for them. And I think the Hawks do have these scenarios all the time in our pre-purchase and other programs. So I'm confident we can work it out. And I'm glad to know that the system is flexible to allow that kind of, yes, we can choose where to go.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we'll have to have, these kinds of meetings regularly throughout this process, right? So that we're all, having a chance to talk out anything that's coming up and make sure that everybody's feeling like we're all on the same page too. So.
Great, thank you for that. Good question. Grace, go ahead. You had a question.
Well, related to this topic, I did just throw in the chat that I anticipate there will be situations, since it's the applicant that's self-identifying whether they need legal services or housing counseling. And so there may need to be referrals between legal services and the Hawks as well. But it sounds like the same system of sort of reassigning will work for that scenario.
Not
And
actually, I will say that that's not actually built in right now, but I will add that to our feedback and see if we can make that happen.
And that's in both ways, I think, right? That you may find with the credit counselor may find, look, this person really needs to go to bankruptcy or is in bankruptcy and really needs some help with the legal side of things, and they should be talking to legal aid, or legal aid is looking at this person and saying, you really don't have a legal issue. You just have to work on a loss mitigation plan or some sort of payment options. Maybe you should go to a counselor instead. So it would have to be both sides of the street.
Yeah, thank you. And the other question I had was just about what's going to be sent over with the referral. I'm hoping that all of the information that the borrower has provided, that they're going to be essentially signing a release as part of the application if they're asking for legal services, so that we have as much information as possible about the client situation before they come to us.
You'll see in the demo what the view is going to look like. Okay. One thing that we don't have, especially for the credit counselor side of things, is the releases that they sign for us don't include a third-party release for you guys necessarily. So if you are going to contact a servicer, for example, on their behalf, they'll, you all have your forms and you all, have the process for getting them filled out and signed. I just figured it'd be easier to let you be in charge of that, because in some cases you won't need it. It won't be a matter of needing that level. It'd be more just one-on-one with the applicant. So
great, thank you. So unless there's any further questions on the referral process methodology, I was going to suggest going into provider connections.
Yeah, I just wanted to, and Sarah's going to show you how this goes, but as we were mentioning before, there's going to be a list in your access to the online system, and that will be how you know who is currently, which applicants are currently assigned to your agency, and we are requested that an email message, that when a new applicant is added to your list, we've requested that an email message be sent to somebody. If you would find that helpful. I guess I thought I would find that helpful, but if you think you're going to be in there a lot and you don't need that, then we don't need to ask for this. But I had asked the vendor yesterday if we could have a functionality whereby when a new case is added to your list, one email address at your agency would receive a notice that an additional applicant had been added. So we'll go ahead and work on that and assume that can happen. And Chad's going to review later the list of information that we need from you. But one of the things we would need is like who at your agency is like your lead counseling contact, and that and who would get that. That's the place where this email message would be sent when a new name is added to your case list. But I'll let I think it's hard to describe something like this without seeing it, so I think I'll let unless you guys have any other questions at this point, it might be really fun to see Sarah walk us through a little bit.
Sarah, before you go ahead and do that, I just see Grace had a question. Just want to make sure I don't lose this. Had a question, and it would be great if a client does not have to keep providing the same info over and over, and if there's a way to smoothly transition clients amongst the group. So just wanted to pose that question before we moved on to the demo.
Well, you'll see the views of what you get, and you'll be able to access pretty much everything that's in the application. That may or may not be everything that you're going to need for purposes of doing the counseling, right? We don't necessarily ask for their, if they're all they're asking us for is mortgage assistance, for example, we don't know what their property tax bill is. We don't know what their normal expenses are. We're not getting any sort of significant data about, how, their money actually, what their needs necessarily all are. So you'll get a basic snapshot of what they provided to us, but I think you're going to find that for your purposes in doing the kind of counseling that you're going to want to do, or Grace, for providing the legal services and being able to look at them more holistically, there will be requests for information that you're going to need to make. Okay.
Great, thank you, George. So I'll turn it over to Sarah for the fun part of today's webinar. Not that the last 30 minutes wasn't fun, just to be clear.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. And I am going to log in. This is the testing portal, so none of this application data that we're going to see is real. And as I'm logged in as a housing counselor from Champlain Housing Trust. So you might see that around, but this is just for testing purposes. There are 3 tabs on your home screen that show My Tasks, which are tasks that are assigned to you as an individual counselor. Reviewed tasks, which are past tasks that you closed or transferred or canceled. And then the third tab is the list of all of the applications that are assigned to your organization. So you'll see over here, I'm assigned to this application, and then these other fake people are assigned to other applications in my organization. So
if it's possible to make the screen just slightly bigger, I have old eyes, apparently. I'm having trouble seeing that specifically. So if you could make it slightly oh, bless you. Thank you.
Okay. It may change the view on some things, but I think this will work. Okay, so on the My Tasks tab, which is the first thing you'll see, you're going to see just a list of the applicant name, the note, the task description, and then other information, the priority, the date that it's assigned to you, it's pending, you haven't closed it. So I'm going to open up this task and do the details. There's a lot of information here, but it tells me that on the program for mortgage reinstatement assistance, somebody has assigned a task to me to complete counseling with this applicant. I am unable to change anything here except for changing the task to close. And so if I'm not ready to close the task because, I need to reach out to this applicant, I need to do other things before I can actually mark this as completed, I'm going to cancel out of this task and move over to the case. So you can only access cases from the third tab. I know it's for Bob Marley, so I'm going to go look at Bob Marley's application. I'm going to see some details. I'm going to see a record of everything that's happened with this applicant down at the bottom of the screen. And maybe I'll make a note here. A note is not a task. It's not going to go anywhere except on the record. You can see other notes that have been added in this little box, and then maybe add a note. They missed their appointment or they rescheduled, something like that. This is really just internal information that you can share with other people in your organization or VHFA staff or case managers looking at this. So it's visible to everybody, this notes tab. And as the notes pile up, they'll end up here. This 360 view is what it's called. It shows you every bit of information that's on the application. So let's see if I can edit it. Oh, right down here. Sorry, I'm a little mixed up just because the screen is a little larger. So on the details page, you'll see just the same way that the application is laid out by chapter. You'll be able to come in here and see all of the answers that the applicant answered, including, I think there was a question in the chat about private information like birthday and social security numbers. That is visible to you by going into the details screen. So you can see the social security number and the date of birth if you click in and drill down on those details. And so that's the high level overview of this. And then the other important function you'll have here is this big button at the top, new application. You'll be able to enter an application directly into the system here, and then keep track of those applications, whether or not they need counseling from you on your reviewed tasks. So right here, you can see that I created a paper application. This application is not actually assigned for housing counseling, but I can still come here and see details about that application in case that person follows up and wants to know more about the status of their application. And I think that's about it. So the important menus to know are that these are individual tasks, the first two tabs, and then these are all of your organization's cases. And then once you go into a case, you get lots of information. You can click on this floating menu to see all the emails. Well, this one doesn't have any emails that have been sent. Let me go back to better case that I can show you. I think one. So the communications menu, well, it will show you all of the emails that were sent, like yeah. So it will show you the emails that were sent. Like this applicant needed additional materials. So you can actually see the text of the email that was sent, when it was sent, and then the program decision. You can see all of the information that the applicant has received. And then if you want to see internal notes, you can click here. And then if for some reason you're helping an applicant and they need additional documentation, you're able to upload documents as well. So this little menu, this floating menu with the 3 dots, is going to help you communicate internally with case management and or the HFA. And then when you're done with your task, say you've completed counseling, you're going to come here and mark it closed. We'll say counseling completed. 1-6. Save. And completed, not canceled. And then it's removed now from my tasks and it's moved over to my reviewed tasks, which is your task history. So that about sums it up. Are there any questions while I'm in here?
Can I just add that when you've completed your counseling work, to the extent that that has affected the kind of assistance that they're asking for, you know, it's good to add a note that explains, you know, here's what we did, talk to the mortgage servicer and they're agreeing to something, you know, for maybe they're agreeing for a partial payment or some sort of other arrangement, and that way the case managers who take this back over will know, as they're dealing with the servicers, you know, what arrangements are in place with that particular applicant.
Yeah, so I just added a note year, kind of just going through what George had mentioned, just so there's a nice track record for everybody to be clear about what's going on with the case. Those notes are going to be the best way to communicate with everybody in the system on what's happening in real time with that case.
Right. And just the communications bit where she was showing you emails, those are really just the system generated emails that have been sent to this particular applicant, and the communication that's come from the system. It's not going to necessarily have every email anybody ever sent internally relating to this particular applicant. It's just the communications that were sent to the applicant from the system.
Okay, there are a couple of questions in the chat. Just want to make sure Trisha's question got answered. Marking level 1 or level 2 counseling.
That's a good point, Trisha. George, are we asking the agencies to note that in the notes, whether they provided level 1 or level 1 and 2 or level 1, 2 and a follow-up?
Well, that's going to be in your financial reporting because that's how you're setting up your billing. It'd be helpful simply because then we can look in it in the file. I think it would be helpful. I'm more interested though to make sure that we not only get that, but if the counseling resulted in some sort of arrangement that had been made with a creditor, they waived a fee or they changed, like the town waived a fee, so that bill now is X versus the original amount they thought it was, or here's some communication that came in while we were doing this process. And you can upload that in so that it updates the file to help the case managers make sure they're working with the most updated information. But yes, it would be helpful if you did include that as well, but that will also be included in your reporting. Yeah, thanks, Tricia.
And Grace, I don't know if that question, if your question about the release, confidentiality release.
It's not really a release, or it's not really a question. It's just a matter of, you'll have a release on your end to share whatever information with us. But obviously, from a confidentiality perspective, unless we have authority from the client, we can't necessarily share what happened with our legal, advice. And so we'll try to get releases, but we may not always be able to share information.
Well, I mean, obviously, Grace, the only thing that we're interested in, not the only thing, but the thing that we would be most interested in is what the results were, not necessarily, if there was a litigation strategy developed or something like that. So if you negotiated a payment structure for either reinstituting the loan or some sort of release, then we just pretty much need to know how much money is the program going to need to put up to get this guy over the hump, right?
Which will need, the client to allow us to communicate with you to resolve their legal issues.
Hopefully they will do that, because otherwise nothing will work.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And I see Bruce has a question around some of the expenses relating to the technical pieces. And I know that's come up with a couple of agencies, so I'm not sure who can respond to that, or if Sarah is typing.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah is typing.
Yeah, I was typing about a user manual, so not related to that.
Not related. So I don't know if there's anyone, George, that could speak to that.
I don't. I guess we'd have to understand what the costs you're talking about. Everybody has different capabilities, and it may be easier for some than others. I don't know that we were initially thinking about that. So I need to understand what we're talking about here. I mean, we have a limited budget that we're working with. So that's all I can say.
And I don't, you know, the meeting that we had earlier in the week was great, and our vendor was there, and then our vendor, you know, immediately spit out a work plan, and I was like dollar signs started lighting up in my mind at least, but he hasn't gotten back to me. And yeah, you know, I said, well, what ballpark are we talking about? So I don't know. It's just really literally coming out of left field for me. And the functionality is awesome. I think it's really, really good to have. It's so, but all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that's an expense that was not on my radar at all. And it might be minor and just part of our normal tech, you know, costs, or it might be more. I don't know yet.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I think if you get an understanding of how much it is and you know, do you have other resources to cover that, given that this is more, it could be considered a kind of a mission thing. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
I'll just add that the vendor we're working with, Viridian, who is on that call, Bruce, they're happy to help with the list. So the reason we're setting up those one-on-one calls is so they can really do a lot of that work. So that is one helpful piece.
Okay.
And then Sarah, there are two ways of connecting. So Bruce, it might be that if one way is going to present big financial obstacles for you, my understanding is that we're looking at using both of these methods of connecting among the agencies. And so it would be good to have more conversation about it to make sure you've got the best fit and you're using the right resources.
Yeah, this is Dave. The Opportunities Credit Union is not going to be using the point-to-point IPsec VPN. I detailed that in a message to some members of this group yesterday internally because of the regulations that they face as a federally regulated credit union. So they will be using the IP filtering that we were going forward. So yes, Leslie, you are right. So if some of these organizations do not have the capabilities either in terms of the current equipment, or it would be cost prohibitive to upgrade their equipment, that probably will be a lower cost or no cost sort of option to provide access.
Right.
So Bruce, I guess, yeah, let us know, Bruce.
All right.
Okay. Great. Okay. I think Eric, you have your hand up. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to check in with the HOCs and with opportunities once applicant is referred for counseling or opts in to counseling, would you guys have an intake form that they would need to complete either online or on paper? And is there anything that BHFA can do that you can think of right now that would make it easier for the client in order to get over that hurdle, so that they don't get, stuck trying to get into your system? And I don't know if this is the case, but you might be, trying to capture counseling and reporting it to HUD or some other source for funding there. I just wanted to raise that issue to see if there's anything that we can do on our end to make that as easy as possible for the client.
I can't answer for everybody else, but we're alleged we just have a one-page form that we've been using for VRAC that we just fill out while we're talking to the client that, gets their demographics and all of that. Because it really isn't, there isn't a lot needed for reporting purposes. So it's not a big deal. It's not going to hold anything up.
that's why I had actually asked before about like, some of the demographic information. It's like if we already have that, does the client has to tell 3 or 4 agencies their address and their ethnicity and their email and like all that stuff that's going to be just core. So, and like different hawks, like, if we're going to report him to HUD, then we have to have them do a certain intake form. But if we're just doing, because we do the same thing as for VRAP people, if it's just short and sweet, it's that 1 pager. But if we're going to actually do full HUD counseling, then we have to give them certain documents and forms, et cetera, and they have to sign. But that's what I was hoping to get as much front loaded as we could so that we could get our system populated without having to ask the client repetitiously over and over. And the other part is that it is nice to know that we can combine this with potential other grant funds, that if we've helped someone, but then still 6 months down the road, we're still helping them, it's not a conflict to put them through like our HSCP grant or something like that. So that's great.
Yeah, like I said, you'll have the information that's in the application that they gave us. So that'll be a good starting point.
Great. So I think we've got just about 10 minutes left. So and a couple more items to go over. So I just wanted to make sure, Trisha, you've got your hand up. I think posted a question in there.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to clarify to make sure that I understand. We are able to, in addition to the VHFA, the 250 or the set amounts, we are able to bill additional time spent with these clients to the housing stabilization program or other things. I was under the impression we could not. Is that?
We can only pay, you can't get paid for the same services twice. So,
correct. Yep. Right. Of course. Yeah,
so
of course.
That's
no
all I can, that I think is, and you guys know that from your other sources of funding too. So if there's a recognized way for you guys to make sure you're delineating between, well, I provided this service and that's what I'm getting paid for here, and then I got other services I'm providing through another thing there, then, I think that's just how the world works, right? So the only concern would be to say that, you're doing, the same thing we're paying you for, you're also getting paid for from somebody else.
Yeah,
so,
that wouldn't. Yeah. I wasn't not not looking to do that, but I'm just
Right.
anticipating some of the ones that are referred from VHFA are potentially going to be very long-term clients, and so knowing when to close it out with VHFA and when, but we might still, like Barbara said, still be working with them later, or do we wait to close them out through VHFA?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's okay, I promise.
our counseling, as you can see from the contract, I mean, it's pretty delineated as to the kind of thing we're asking you all to do. It's not necessarily a long-term relationship kind of situation. We're just trying to make sure that at least somebody's taking a pass at these people and saying, you got a lot bigger problem than what you're coming in for, or, you really ought to think about loss mitigation through your servicer before you go to VHFA, because you really need to change your payment amount. Getting $5,000 now is not going to help you, if you don't have any income and you can't make your monthly payments. So that's what our intent is for the focus. Also, just, if you see more of a 360 as to what their other sources of income and all their expenses are, you can say, you ought to ask for utility assistance too, or you ought to ask for something else. This program might help you more. But yeah, there are folks I know who do much longer term kind of.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of those level 2 clients that you might end up working with them for months on loan modification, and those would fit under the level 2, but and not to and the amount isn't really going to cover the time that we're going to spend on that. So I'm just trying to figure out how to make it really possible to take it all on realistically without putting ourselves under.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
Trisha, I actually have mapped
So-
that out in a flow chart. If you want to follow up later or any of the other Hawks,
That'd be
because we have
great.
4
Okay.
grants that we have to manage and keep very clear and separate and no double dipping. And
Right.
this one goes
That's why
with
I
that
wanna-
one, but not
sure.
with the other one.
Right.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
have a little
Thanks,
bit of that
Barbara.
thought out if anybody wants to chat later.
Yeah,
That'd
and
be
I mean, I
great.
think that that's sort of generally an issue that we wanted to talk about. I mean, you guys are getting, thank goodness people are finally recognizing, the services are very important, and we want to make sure we direct people to counseling. On the other hand, are you guys going to be overwhelmed? I mean, are you drinking from a fire hose right now? And are we facing capacity limits here in the state where, we need to look to finding other resources to help out? Because, anecdotally anyway, we're hearing from Massachusetts, for example, that half of their applications for mortgage assistance are coming with requests for counseling assistance. And that's a lot higher than what we expected. So if you have concerns about capacity, when you're talking, when you're looking through the contracts, please indicate that, because if we are, be realistic in what you're budgeting for and how many people you can handle, so that we know that maybe we need to also look for other sources of help as well.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I think this is a good place. We've got just a couple of minutes left, and so wanted to just check in real quickly around capacity agreements and then the list of things needed. I'm going to show my screen very, very quickly so that you all can see what's going to be coming your way immediately after this meeting. And then I just wanted to make sure we clarified that piece around the budget for you all. So if you all can see this, and let me make it a little bit bigger, because myself am squinting at this. So we've sent a couple of emails now over the last month or so, and so I'm gonna send one email with everything that we're needing, and we're asking folks to return these by the 11th, so by next week. And thank you for all of those of you who have sent these things back. So I'm going to send this to each agency with needed or already have listed for each one of these, so that you all will know what you've sent back, and then some of the things that we do need. One of the really important things is the agreement, and then the estimated budget, which is page 7 of the counseling agreement. So, and just wanted to clarify what that meant. George or Leslie, do you want to just talk really, really quickly around what those 3 components are? So just so that everyone's aware. Oh, Leslie, you're muted.
Yep. I hadn't done it yet today, so thank you for bearing with me while I got that over with for the day. But yeah, the that estimated annual budget would be the number of applicants for HAP that you expect to provide assistance. And the assistance can either be just level 1 counseling, or it could consist of level 1 and level 2 counseling. Or for a smaller subset, it would be all 3 kinds of counseling: level 1, level 2, and a follow-up counseling session. But this, this program comes with, like you were mentioning before, some limits on like how much counseling can be covered. So just 1 level 1 session, just 1 level 2 session, and then 1 follow-up session. And that's the max that this program can cover. And in fact, the follow-up can only happen if the applicant has been provided level 1 and level 2 counseling, so that the number of people who get that follow-up counseling would be smaller than the number of people who got like the level 1 and level 2 counseling, and the number of level 2 counseling has to be a subset of the people that got the level 1 counseling. So it's just a sequence of like kind of 1 to 3 doses of contact and counseling with these HAP applicants as the agreement lays out.
Great. Thank you, Leslie, for walking through that.
Yeah, and again, just if everybody could make sure you're realistic as to what you're going to be able to handle, right? Knowing all the other issues you're dealing with, you got ERAP people coming through and everything else. I know that everybody's busy, and we really need to be able to gauge, what other sources we might need to be looking for, to the extent that you guys are kind of maxed out, if you are, and again, knowing that you talk to each other, maybe can refer folks among yourselves as well. So it's a balancing act, but we appreciate what the information you can provide on that, so that we can try to make sure that everybody has the availability.
Thanks, George. One final thing I'll note from this list, and I'll stop sharing my screen, is just we're asking for a handful of contacts. So in particular, the primary agency contact, so someone that we'll be reaching out to for kind of larger, broader, more general organizational questions. A counseling or legal services lead. So this is what Leslie was describing earlier, that this is where the email will be sent to notifying requests for services. And then the application assistance contact. So for those of you who are going to be also providing application assistance, this will be the contact that we'll be referring people to for just that level of service.
Right.
And then
to answer Trisha's question, application only is not covered by this budget that we're talking about. That's a separate, just individual fee for each one you bring through. So you don't include that in this particular budget.
And I'll include both those agreements, those contracts, in the email as well.
And I believe my appliances are here, so I gotta go. Sorry.
Thank you, George. So any final questions? I think we were able to go through everything that we needed. Does anyone have any questions specifically around the agreements or the budget at all? And again, I'll be sending this list out to everyone and asking folks to return everything by the 11th.
I just have a general question. I'm wondering if VHFA is planning to have regular meetings with this group. It seems like as the application rolls out and we see how these systems are working, it'd be useful for all of us to get together maybe monthly or to check in.
I think we've talked about that too, Grace. We'd love to be able to do that with you all. But I don't know if we should wait for a month. How long, maybe, what do you guys think from now? Well, you know what, we don't know when this is going to launch. So let's see let's see when that happens, and then maybe schedule something, for a week or two after that, to just check in with you to see initially what you're experiencing. But like Chad pointed to a slide earlier, you can contact us anytime. Chad is actually he's a great facilitator. He knows where all the expertise is at VHFA and can, if it's an organizational kind of question, he can get an answer. But if it's a customer level question, then you guys have a direct connection to our HAP experts at VHFA. It's a 2-person office. And so the reason we didn't give you one of the people is so that if one of them is out, you'll get the other one. And they're on the line today, and they are fully equipped to answer your questions about a particular customer.
Andrea, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a specific question. Do we know what the time frame is? If someone is just submitting an application and they're not doing the counseling and they're just waiting for a check, do we know how long that might take?
I think Polly, do you want to answer that?
I was ready. I thought maybe that would come my way. I mean, it's really all going to depend on the servicer and their capacity. But the records are turned around relatively quickly to the servicer, and within a week or two, then we would have hoped to get what we call the V record. So the verification is there. Once we've gotten that, the payment process is going to roll out quickly. So I think if you're really trying to give somebody some level of, and comfort in terms of what they can be looking at, but be as realistic as you can be, I would say in the potential 30-day realm. Most likely, and we hope before, so we're going to be staying on this, but just to be safe, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
What do you
And
say,
these will
30
be-
business days, Polly?
I'm sorry?
What do you say, 30 business days? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, because the servicers, more than likely, they're not working on the weekend. So, it's a 30 business day turnaround as an estimate.
I was just gonna say, these will be good things that we can check in on as we meet. And thanks, Grace, for it seems like these conversations are really fruitful. So we'll continue convening.
And we're individually always happy to help, with a particular situation that maybe just seemed like it got caught up in the reeds, and just reach out, and we're happy to drill into it a little bit and to hopefully give you more specific information if you're feeling the stress from the applicant. So sure, please feel free to do that.
Great. Well, we have leapt into your lunchtime. So we want to thank you all for spending the last hour plus with us and asking these really great questions. We really do appreciate the questions and the feedback, because we are making this better as we get ready to launch. So thank you all for your time and your expertise in this. So I will stop recording right now. I'll get the recording out to everyone. Hopefully early next week, and then I'll get that email out to everyone very shortly with a list of things that to get to us.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks so much.
Bye.